Never, 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 never. I will never rewatch it.
Becoming a coach, they would make me
Ooh,
coach someone, and then I had to rewatch it, give myself advice. Oh, that's the worst. And then I would have a conversation.
painful.
And he would like play snippets from it.
Oh,
I would listen to myself for like 16 weeks for hours on end.
that sounds so painful.
Worse.
That's torture. That is absolute torture.
There were a lot of people that dropped out, and I think that's the reason.
I would.
Yeah.
Oh. There we go. We're still 1 minute early, so I don't know how many usually show up. Probably straggling. Okay, and just so I'm clear, so we have about 2 hours. I'm like, that's a long time, but we can talk a lot, but I don't. Okay. Okay, so we won't be mad if I'm done in an hour. Okay. And have like to this point, sorry, just really quick, I should have asked you before. To this point, they've talked about like how to get the buyer broker signed. Like,
luckily,
this is like after that.
Seth is the newbie.
Okay. Seth. Okay, Brandon. Okay.
Really good for him.
Okay.
Everyone else kind of comes to a handful of things, but the buyers, they went on an appointment, they signed an agreement.
Okay.
Now what?
Now what? Okay, that's what I thought.
We're writing on for a whole week ahead.
Good deal. A whole week ahead, man. You're an old timer now. Tell me your name.
Elias?
Elias and Stan, right? Right. Okay. And I know you guys. And okay. Do you guys all know each other though? No. Okay. So Seth, tell us what you did before you decided to get your real estate license.
Basically I've been just working in school.
School. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And what made you decide to get into real estate?
I did kind of like a internship.
Okay.
With someone who
Like a shadow?
Properties, just kind of shadowing him, yeah, and really like what he did, so I should take my hand.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Okay. McKay, tell us. Yeah, I know, but these guys don't. So introduce yourself to these guys. Tell them a little bit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My 60 days.
Woohoo! It's not sobriety, so we will. I don't know. We need a pin or something.
But yeah, I'm still green. Working on
Everyone's new, learning. It's all good.
first help go out and the smoking houses. Still getting some leads. Trying to follow up.
It's definitely like season, like harvesting, and you got to plant the seeds. So yeah, absolutely. And Chris.
Chris. 60 days too.
Twinners. Okay.
For that.
Cool.
Eating at a restaurant.
Nice. Nice. Well, it's a kind of in a weird way, it's kind of a similar field. You're serving people in a different way. So awesome. Elias, tell us what you were doing before real estate. Nothing?
So many.
I'm like, nothing. So
Every job at a newspaper.
oh, wow.
From writing, editing, IT, photos, reporting, graphic design, like health paper.
Small town?
That.
Like,
We're in a personal recording studio where I'm scoring a third feature film right now, and I've produced albums and songs and music videos for
wow.
people. An AV programmer, installer for performance audio.
Very wide range of experiences. Cool.
Fixed appliances.
Done it all.
An adjunct at Snow College doing music technology and production, electronic music.
All right.
Teaching license, but I've only substitute taught at that level.
Okay. All right. Well, you've had a wide range. Awesome.
Stuff.
Okay, Stan, introduce yourself to everybody. Randy. Oh my gosh. I don't know why I called you Stan. Randy. I knew you're Randy. I'm sorry. I do that. Like,
It's math. I've been in Asia for 6,245 days.
okay, so that's what, wait, 6,245 days. That's like 15 years? Quick math in my head. Huh?
What did that kind of?
Thanks, 6 years now.
Good for you.
Back, review. So
Well, and things have changed in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's a good reset. Awesome. Well, I'm Amber Burke. I've been a realtor since 1996. Yes, that's a really long time. But I love it. I love that every day is different. Every day we get a new challenge. Every day there's something that like I would do terrible at a 9-to-5 job that I sat at a desk. I would just really do, especially after basically my whole adult life being a realtor and like having the freedom to just run an errand or, meet a client at whatever time or whatever. So yeah, so I've been an agent forever and ever. I was president of the board of realtors in 2019. So I've been involved. I teach CE classes, lots of things. So you just know who I am a little bit. Okay, so we're going to talk about once you've signed that buyer broker with the buyer, and I'll just plan on this taking about an hour. And then if we have questions more, but feel free to ask questions. I'm pretty casual throughout, and we'll just see how it goes. So, okay, so you've sat down with your buyer. You have signed a buyer broker agreement, which means they've agreed to work with you and you exclusively, right? So we all understand that, what that means. So I have an example that I will use. I have a client that I'm working with right now. She's a first-time buyer. She's probably early 40s and single. And I'll kind of use her as an example of how I'm trying to help her decide what it is that she wants, because she doesn't really know. And so we'll talk a little bit about that today. Okay, so you've got this buyer and you've got him set up. You've got your paperwork and you've got it in command. What's the very first thing you think you will do to help this buyer find their home? What do you guys think? Like, you're sat down with them, you've explained, this is what I do for you. What do you think you're gonna do? What's the very most basic thing? Yes, absolutely. Either confirm that they are already pre-approved or introduce them to some lenders so they can get pre-approved. That's the first step for sure. And then how are we going to find them a house? Ask a lot of really good questions. Yes, wants and needs, like what's a priority? Exactly. And it's funny because sometimes those wants and needs will shift as they start to look at properties. They don't really know. I had this one cute client, they were a young couple and they were like, we absolutely want to have a rambler. Like, we want a rambler, but then they described to me the house they wanted. And I'm like, you really want a 2-story. You just don't know it. And so I was like, just be patient with me, guys. Let's just go look at this floor plan. It's not a rambler, but let's just go look at it. They bought it. Because what they were describing to me was they wanted a lot of open space on the, to be able to gather. Well, a rambler sometimes doesn't have that, especially in the price range they were in and in the budget and the square footage they were in. You're not going to get that. So what they were describing to me was a 2-story. They bought this house probably 10 years ago. They still live there today. So just listening, using that listening capacity to really hear what they're saying, and being able to ask them, why is that important? Like the client that I have right now, the youngish, she's younger than me, so she's young, first-time buyer. She is adamant that she wants a tub in the main bathroom, the primary bathroom. And we've looked at lots of houses that are absolutely fabulous. A lot of the new builders are putting in showers only in the main primary bathroom. And she's like, nope, that won't work for me. So that's easy for me now to weed things out before we even go look at things. Because a lot of buyers might change their tune after seeing a few and being like, actually, I really like this nice big shower. But she's like, no. After we've seen a few, she's like, nope, I'm insistent, I have to have a tub. Okay, good to know. Okay, and then, so we've talked to their lender, we've asked them a lot of good questions. I always like to set them up on the MLS with a listing alert that I also get a copy of. So the listing alerts, just a search on the MLS, and you can set it to alert your client. I like to set it so it goes to them automatically, so instantaneous. As new listings come on the market, they're going to get them. So if a price changes, they're going to get it. So like, let's say this house was not in their price range, but now it is. This minute that changes on the MLS, they get that in their email. So that listing alert is a good way to keep on top of what's coming up. You can also set listing alerts to send you sold listings. Like if you're watching a neighborhood or something like that, you can set it up to send you those sold listings, which is kind of good information. Okay, so we've got them pre-approved. We've talked to their lender. They understand how much money they're going to need to have for down payment and closing costs, or what we need to do to make that happen. Whether we need to ask seller to pay closing costs. A lot of times that's a reality in this market is sellers are paying closing costs. So the buyer needs to understand how much money they need to bring into closing. And that will vary widely, like from a VA buyer who literally can get their earnest money back at closing to a buyer who's putting half down. You know, there's a wide range, or a cash buyer. You know, cash buyers are my favorite. They're the best in the world. So yeah, so we're gonna have that understanding of what they need to do. And then you're gonna set up the listing alerts and set some expectations with them. So you're gonna start scheduling showings. I'll pass this around. This is something that I have that I give to my buyers at their presentation when we sit down and sign the buyer broker agreement. But it's a lot of good information on what I do for them, kind of what to expect as part of the negotiating process, and what to expect out of a home inspection. It even talks about like if we're buying a new home and what not to do. So the worst thing that you could do, I have had a buyer one time when I was a brand new agent. I was selling the Stoneburke condos just up the street here. I was sitting in the model home and I had a young couple come to closing. At the closing, they didn't know, and I was too new to really understand, but they asked him at the closing table, so has anything changed in your financial situation? And they said, well, does it matter that I just quit my job on the way here? Yes, yes, that matters. You should have waited till. Anyway, the lender was luckily able to get it all done, but it took another 2 weeks because she had to rerun everything as if now this buyer, the wife, was no longer employed. So it goes through some things like that, like don't quit your job, don't change jobs, don't change bank accounts, don't pull money out from under your mattress and put it in your bank account without an explanation of where that's coming from. Don't go buy a new car, don't go buy a boat, those kind of things that buyers don't know. They're just like, we're so excited. I actually heard of a story, not in Utah, I think it was in another state, where first-time buyers were buying a house. I didn't even know you could do this. They went and bought a dog for their new house, but they financed their dog. Like, I didn't know you could do that, but it was like a purebred dog or whatever. Anyway, they financed their dog to get into the new house. They were excited, and that financing kicked them out of qualifying. They couldn't get the house. They have a dog now, but no house. So if they just would have waited a week after closing, 2 days after, a day after closing, it doesn't matter. But if they do it before closing, it can totally skew the numbers. And so that's kind of some stuff. I'll pass this around. It's copyrighted information because I have a designation with the NAR, but you guys can take a look at that. I suggest whether you do it in Command, there's a nice presentation booklet there, or other programs that you can use it's all one big packet, sorry. Yeah, so just glance at it and pass it around, but it's all one. Have something that you can give them that kind of shows your value, shows what you're bringing to the table and why they want to use you, and help set expectations. So there's a lot that goes on that buyers don't know through the process. And I love, Gary Keller says, the most important phrase in real estate is here's what comes next. Okay, because they don't know. Like from the minute we go under contract, they're so excited, but then they're like, now what? Now what do I need to do? What's the next step? So you need to be proactive in setting those expectations of what they need to do to be ready. Okay, so you're going to schedule your first showing. Let's say you're going to go out. How many houses do you think you're going to show the first day to a buyer? How many? 3? 3 would be a good start, like to get a feel for what they are looking for. And like, I always tell them beforehand, like before we even go out, don't hold back on feedback with me. I'm like, but before we go into the houses, I do want to warn everyone, assume that there are cameras in every house nowadays. Just assume. So be careful what you say inside the house or even on the porch or in the front driveway, because sellers are most likely listening to you. So you want to be careful that you're either not too rude or not too, even not too complimentary, like, this is my house, I have to have this house. It killed our negotiating power, right? You have to be careful what you say in and around the house. But yeah, 3 is a good start to like get a feel. It depends on the buyer. Every buyer is going to be different. Like I have some buyers that come into town, they're here for 2 days and they have to find a house. And I'm like, okay, we will do whatever it takes to find you the house. And sometimes they're coming from out of state and they don't know the area at all. And they're like, we don't know where we want to live. We need to drive some neighborhoods to get a feel for it, but we're only here for 2 days. So it's like, okay, well, if we need to go from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., we'll do it because we're going to find you the right house.
That sounds like fun.
It's really intense. It can be a long day, but it actually can be a lot of fun. Like I actually really like putting people in my car and like getting to know them and like figuring out what they do like as we're driving through neighborhoods. Like I like people in my car, some agents don't. I like them in my car because I feel like as we're driving through neighborhoods, that's when I get to know them a little bit more and what they do like and what they don't like in between the houses that we're seeing. But a lot of agents just prefer not to have them in their car, and that's fine too, whatever works for you. But as you're going through, like as I tell them, okay, so don't hold back on telling me, it's not my house. You're not going to offend me if we walk up to it and you're like, ew, I hate this. I don't even want to go inside. Like, right? Like first impression, I hate it. Nope, not going to live here. But if it is a home that we've scheduled an appointment that's occupied, I'll tell them we're going to go quickly through it as a courtesy because the seller's prepared for us. Like, even if you're like, if it's an empty home, fine, we don't need to go inside. But if it's a home that the seller has gone out of their way to prepare and leave and get ready for us, then yeah, we'll quickly go through. We don't need to spend any time, just zip through, get out. But you're not offending me by telling me that. You're actually helping me know what you want and what you don't want. So, because sometimes people are like, oh, I'm so sorry, I hate that kitchen. I'm like, why are you sorry to me? It's not my kitchen. I didn't make that kitchen, you know, and like, please tell me that. Like, but they're afraid to. They don't want to hurt your feelings, or I'm like, I don't understand that, but like, tell me, I need to know. Okay, so we're going to go out, we're going to get that feedback from them of what they do and don't like. And we might need to refine our search because now they've like said, well, actually, we really want to be in this neighborhood. Like we like this neighborhood and we only want to look at homes in this area. Okay, so we can refine our search a little bit. For my cute Chelsea, she needs a tub. It's hard on the MLS to say I want a bathtub, but maybe it's price. Maybe I've had a couple lately where they're like, we looked at everything in their price range in their area they wanted to look at, and they're like, actually, we can spend a little bit more. You know, once they've seen what they thought was a good budget, and they're like, actually, we can bump our budget a little bit to get what we want. So, all right. So what do you think is like an average overall number of houses that people look at? I don't know the actual number. I'm just asking, like before they make an offer. 5? That could be fair. Good average. 7, yeah. A dozen. It could be, it depends on the market and it depends on the buyer and the seller situation too. So I've had buyers literally look at one house and buy it. And I've had buyers, my sister-in-law, look at 100, no joke, houses in 3 counties in a very wide price range. And I was like, we're looking at everything in 3 counties in a very wide price range, but family, you know, they'll do that. But yeah, I literally have had it where it was actually my listing. My husband was putting up the sign and I was in the truck and my husband was just sledgehammering in the sign and I was just sitting there. A lady drove up and was like, this house is for sale? And she's like, and he's like, yeah. He's like, she goes, can I see it? And he goes, well, my wife's the realtor, you know, talk to her. I showed her it and she bought it. Like that's very rare, but it does happen every once in a while. But with a buyer that you're representing and you're going out start to finish, it might be a little bit of a longer, well, it's definitely going to be a little bit of a longer process than that. Some buyers, like if they're coming from out of state and they're not familiar with the area, you're going to have to do some educating. I've talked to a couple of clients that I'm selling their houses right now that moved here from another area. And both of them, I always ask them when they're selling a house, what was a good thing that your realtor did when you bought this house or when you sold the last house, and they're like, and what's one thing that your agent didn't do well that you wish they would have done? And both of these clients that had moved here from out of state, not familiar with Utah at all, they said they wished their agent that was helping them buy would have helped them with a little more information on the areas. And that can be tricky because you do need to be careful about fair housing. You have to be really careful what kinds of information you give people, but I often just refer people to websites. Like, here's some demographic information on this website. That way it's not me saying, well, this is kind of a yucky area, or whatever. And we don't know like what a buyer feels comfortable with in terms of an area. Like, there have been houses I've sold where I wouldn't live in that neighborhood, but the buyer loved it, So you just have to be really careful about putting your own preconceived biases into what they may or may not like. The hardest house I've ever sold is my own house because I know everything I don't like about it, right? So you just have to be careful. That's where like I can't show my own house because I know I hate this kitchen. I know, like that kind of thing. So you just have to be really neutral and let buyers set their own pace of what they want to talk about and what they're comfortable with. And I always tell people, like, when we're looking at houses to buy, I will tell you resale factors. Like, if we are looking at houses and there are things that you're going to come back to me in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years to resell this house, I'm going to tell you now that busy road is going to be a factor when we go to resell it. I'm going to tell you now that this not having a dining area to speak of is going to be a factor for resale. But if the house works for you and you're okay with that, great. Just understand that. I'm going to tell you those things up front. But I don't have to make the payment and I don't have to live in the house. You do. So if you want this and it works for you and it's the best house for you in your budget, then absolutely you should buy it, right? So just again, kind of setting those expectations of what you're going to do for them and what you're not going to do for them. I'm not going to tell you to make an offer on this house unless the market, and like 2020, the market was, I was constantly saying to people, I'm not pressuring you. The market is pressuring you to make an offer on this house because if you don't, it'll be gone. Like, my job is not to pressure you. My job is to inform you of what the market is doing. And right now the market is, if you like this house, you dang well better make an offer today or it will be gone tomorrow. The market today in 2025 is not that. We have a little bit less urgency. However, I had a client, I was out of town last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I got back Wednesday. Had a client contact me on Tuesday to see a house on Wednesday. It had only been on the market 2 days. And we went to see it Wednesday afternoon, made an offer that night. By the next morning, this third day on the market, they already had another offer. So you just never know. Like it, and luckily for us, we got it. But after the other buyer found out that they went back to us and we accepted our offer, they upped their offer and now they're a backup. So if anything goes wrong with ours, they have a higher backup offer to ours. So we don't have any leverage when it comes to inspection issues. If we're not going to ask for anything because we're not going to mess it up. We're going to keep this house. They want this house really bad. We're going to make sure they get it. So you just never know what market. And so that's why, let's say they do find one they like. And you're like, okay, first-time buyers can be the most skittish. And that's why I always like to explain to them, when we make an offer, you're going to put earnest money down, but that earnest money is 100% refundable up until a certain point in the contract. So don't be scared of committing because you're just committing to checking this house out, getting inspections, getting those things figured out. And then you can decide if it's really the house for you. Because a lot of buyers are like, well, once I give you that whatever, $5,000 earnest money, I'll never see that money again. No, 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 we're going to protect you. But a lot of buyers don't understand that process because they've never done it before. They don't understand that that money is refundable up to a certain point in the contract. So, okay, so we're ready to make an offer. Let's say they found a house, we've shown them 12, they finally found one they like, and they're ready to make an offer. What do you think your first step at that point is going to be? Tell me your name, sorry. Say it again. Shane? Shaylee. Shaylee, sorry. Nice to meet you. I'm Amber. And do you know these guys? Sorta. Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, so we're ready to make an offer. Sorry, you were going to say something.
I lost my train.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Shaylee, it's all your fault. No, I'm totally kidding.
We're gonna ask, well,
What would you offer?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is a reasonable offer for this price, for this house? And that's where I tell them there's three things that I take into consideration as a listing agent when I look at an offer. Let's say we do have multiple offers. I'm going to consider, number one, the price, the net price, like what we're going to get, the seller's going to net. And that can take into account closing costs, that can take into commissions, that could take into home warranty. Many, many, many times, I can't tell you, over 29 years, I've had multiple offer situations come down to the seller deciding based on a home warranty or not, included or not included. Like the offers were identical in every other way. Well, this one's going to give me $700 more, so I'll take that one. You know, it can come down to something so small. So price, earnest money, and what the timeline of when that earnest money becomes non-refundable for the seller from the seller's perspective. And number three is timing. So timing being, okay, what does the seller want? So first thing I always do when my client says they want to make an offer is I'm going to call the listing agent. And I like to call, not text, if I can, and if I can get a hold of them and if they will answer their phone, and talk to them and see what information I can glean from a phone call. Because some agents will tell you things they should have never told you, and some agents will just give you information. So I always ask things like, so for example, my clients that made an offer last Wednesday night. Okay, so I asked the listing agent, what is the seller's preferred timeline for closing? Because we're in November right now, you know? And she said, actually, they would love to stay through the holidays in the house. And I was like, okay. And I didn't know what my buyer's preferred timeline was. Well, when we got to see the house, she was like, I want to close as soon as possible. I want to be in this house before the holidays. So I was like, okay, so how do we bridge that gap? Well, come to find, we wrote the offer the way, we were the only offer at that point. So we wrote the offer the way my buyer wanted and said, let's see what the seller says. We're going to close in 3 weeks. We are going to do da, 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 da. We've got all these things. And turned out the other offer was longer. But in the end, when the seller sat down at the kitchen table and looked at both offers, they were like, actually, we would like to close sooner. So that was part of the reason why I mean, it could have backfired if we would have agreed to what the seller's agent was telling me they wanted. But sometimes you just have to do, like, at least I explained to the other agent, like, hey, this is their preference, but if it comes down to it, they don't want to lose the house over a couple weeks timing. They can be flexible. So explaining that to the realtor up front, because I've had many buyer's agents on my listings tell me things like, oh, no, if this just doesn't meet this box, if it doesn't fit this little box, my buyers don't want it. Well, if your other buyer is a little more flexible in a multiple offer situation, I would rather work with the more flexible buyer. That's just me. Or you can sometimes get an idea from how things are going with like their lender, or their loan letter, or things like that. Anyway, that's on the seller side. Sorry, I'm getting off track. I will do that.
Questions
yeah.
you ask the listing agent?
So the one I love to ask at the very beginning is I like to ask them, besides what's on the MLS, what should I know about this property? and just stop talking. Just shut up and let them talk. Because, and you can get that really awkward silence, but you're also going to get agents. Like I literally, a client called me one day. We'd worked together on other projects and stuff, but they called me out of the blue and they were like, we saw this piece of land that's for sale and we want to buy it. And I think it was listed at 400,000. And it was kind of a like commercial-ish type of land, which I don't deal with a whole lot. And I told them that, but they're like, we could offer the 400 that's asking. And I was like, okay. So I called the agent and I asked, besides what's on the MLS, what do I need to know about this property? And he starts telling me how it was these two men that owned this property. They were brothers, and I think they both died. And so now the wives were selling it, the remaining wives were selling it. And he's like, well, first of all, it's overpriced. And I was like, we were going to make you. Gosh, I keep losing that. Mic drop. We were going to make you. Of course I wouldn't say that, but he's like, it's overpriced. And I was like, oh, okay. We ended up getting that property for $350. My clients were willing to pay $400, but we ended up getting it for $350 just because he said that, because we wouldn't have offered much lower than the $400 if he hadn't have said that, because it just was a different situation. So people, they'll just start rambling and tell you all sorts of things and some agents are really good and won't, but some agents will just start telling you things that are helpful to you. So with your buyer. Sorry, tell me your name in the back. Francie? Yeah. Okay, I'm Amber. Nice to meet you. Just ask questions, please, anything that comes up. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more. Sorry, I'm kind of going backwards, but that's like the first thing I do is talk to the agent, get a feel. Sometimes you can get a feel for the level of urgency on the seller's part, like how urgent is this that they get an offer right away? Like, is that more important to them? Is timing more important to them? What's more important to them? But let's go back to, okay, we're showing houses. Sorry, jumping all over the place, but we're showing houses and we're looking at houses, and we're like, the other day I showed Chelsea, my buyer that I was telling you about, I showed her 4 houses, 4 townhomes. She's looking at a townhome. So one we looked at backs a big field that we're not really 100% sure what's going to happen to that field in the future. She liked the floor plan. We went to another one that was kind of a similar floor plan, but a little different in a different neighborhood. And I wouldn't use this too much, but because they were so similar but the neighborhoods were a little bit different, I asked her, okay, if you had to choose between these two, which would you choose? Like if there were only these 2 homes available, which of these 2 would you choose? And she's like, I like the first one with the field behind it, but I would need to know what is going to happen to that field before I decide. Okay, that helps me go forward and easy to get that information of it's easy to see who owns it now, but that can always change. And like helps me realize, okay, on to the next one. She was very specific. So we looked at some townhomes that were beautiful, brand new in Lehigh, right off 2100 North. And she's like, I really like those. However, I would like to be in a little bit quieter of an area. Like that's a busy area, and I would like to be in a little bit quieter of an area. Well, so she sent me over the weekend a couple homes that she wanted to see. And in the meantime, I knew of a different area that was a more quiet area, because the 3 she sent me were kind of similar area to the first one that she said she didn't like the area. So I was like, okay, we need to mix her up. We need to show her some things that she's not seen yet. And so I found this other one that was on the market in a different area, much quieter, and showed her that. And she's like, she didn't like the floor plan, but she's like, I really like this area. Well, now I know, okay, if something comes up in this area, that's going to be better for her than something over off 2100 North in Lehigh. What's some other ways you think you can help fine tune a decision-making process for a buyer who's a little skittish or a little unsure of what they want? What do you guys think? That's one way. Comparison, like if you had to choose between these two, what would you choose? And some people get nervous by that. They're like, well, I'm not ready to choose right now. I'm not asking, I'm just saying hypothetically, if you had to choose, like don't freak them out too much. It's a big commitment, buying a house. What other ways do you think?
Maybe
Where they work? Like, look, how far? Yeah, how far? Mm-hmm. That's why I always ask when buyers are moving here from out of state that aren't familiar with the area, what's your tolerance for a commute? Like, what's your time tolerance for a commute? Because you could live 5 miles from somewhere and take a long time to get to work, or you could live 10 miles and take less time. Just depends on where you live, right? So it's the time of the commute. So I always ask that, what's your tolerance for a commute time? And some buyers surprise me. They're like, oh, we could do an hour. I'm like, an hour commute to work? Why? Like, you don't have to, but yeah, good question. Yeah.
Children, pets,
Who's living in the house with you? Right?
parks.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one. And yeah, again, fair housing, we have to be careful how we phrase it. So who's living in the house with you is a good way to phrase that. Like, is it just going to be you living in the house, or will there be other people and animals living with you? That's a great way. What about, okay, so with Chelsea, for example, we're looking at townhomes. Some have basements that are unfinished and some do not. So asking questions as we go through, like, okay, this one has an unfinished basement, but it costs 30,000 more than this one that does not have a basement at all. Does that matter to you? Would you rather pay less and not have that unfinished basement, or would you rather pay more and have that option for storage space? Because that's all it's going to be. You're not going to finish it, right? You know? And she's like, no, I'll never finish that. She's in the bathtub, right? She wants a big soaker tub, and that's what's important to her, basement. And so she actually said later to me, she said, I appreciate that you asked those questions because it got me thinking about things that I hadn't even thought of. So as you're walking through different houses, you can make comparisons and ask, how important is it to you that it has X? Is it, you know, if we're looking at a $50,000 difference in price, would you rather have a payment that's less, or would you rather have that basement for storage? Yeah.
also like
Oh, yes, HOAs. Yep, HOAs and transfer fees, that's a big one. A new one with townhomes that I'm seeing come up is now and I don't even understand it 100%, so please don't ask me any questions, but the public infrastructure, I don't even know what it's called, PID. PID, it's some special tax thing where certain townhome developments are having like this special, it's a tax that's when you sell, which is weird for Utah because we don't really have that, but it's a newer thing. And so it's like, okay, we want to be careful that we know what we're getting, you know, with, especially with HOAs and stuff. Kind of, yeah, it kind of is. It's like a long-term impact fee from the developer. Yeah. Exactly. Ooh, I'll tell you a good one on that one. So I had a client that was buying a townhome here in Provo, and it had been listed just for a couple days when we went to see it. But I always look at the history on the MLS of what, you know, what this property, when it sold last. Well, when it had sold last was literally 3 weeks before they listed it. And I was like, well, that's a question I'm going to ask the listing agent. Like, they just bought this 3 weeks ago. Why are they selling it? Right? I mean, that's a logical question. So I asked the listing agent that, and he said it was a family that was buying it for their daughter, adult daughter, to live there, and she smoked. And the CCNRs for the HOA said she could not smoke anywhere in or out of her unit on the property of the HOA. And so rather than smoking, they sold at a loss. So you just, I mean, that's one thing that would be really important to know. Like, hey, what if my client Chelsea wants to rent this property in the future? Can she do that in this HOA? Very important to ask those questions. Yeah, did you have something?
Yes. You see that? I forget what it's called. The HOA guy. It's the big deal.
I haven't. No, but there's a lot of good HOA horror stories out there. But there's also HOAs are good too. Like HOAs do some good things and they have some really nice amenities. So I actually live in an HOA in my house, and I love it. Like we've lived in the same HOA for 26 years and I love it. So, but I'm not a problem child, I guess. Not throwing loud parties all the time, stuff like, So anyway, good questions. Yeah. What else? What else do you guys think you could do to help your buyer really fine tune what they're looking for? Because they don't know a lot of times. Like, yeah.
Decorating for this, but kind of like if they're okay being in a tight like neighborhood with like a lot of houses right next door. or,
Yeah.
Like with the buyer that I was working with, like mountain views and like more like rural was like extremely important to him. He was like, I can't
Yes.
drive like an hour,
Right.
but I just want like to
A
see the
view.
mountains and like not be close to all.
Exactly. Yeah. So space, it's really fun when I had last summer, I had couple. The one was like, wanted that rural feel. And the other was like, no, I want to be in the city. I'm like, oh, how are we going to bridge this gap between the two of them? And we looked at a lot more houses with them than I probably would have with other buyers because we were trying to find the good match for both of them. Well, in the end, as I tell all my clients, there's trade-offs, right? If you want this layout in this location, the price is going to be higher, right? Or whatever. So there's trade-offs.